All right, guys. Hey, since the GoPro worked or failed on my helmet cam leaving Paul's place, I'm going to try and paint you a lovely picture. You guys let me know what you think. What was it entertaining or was it just stupid because I didn't have any action footage? But I did several weekends at Paul's, 2 weekends with Paul, and then a weekend at Jeremy's place. So the 2 weekends at Paul's were a pretty similar route, where we left Gray Eagle on Birch Lake, headed up to the trail by Gray Eagle, and then went up towards Flenberg, had lunch at Flensburg, and then through Swansville and headed up towards Little Falls. We're on the west side of Little Falls, and just made a big loop around and came back down. And lots of fun trails. It is a great mix, where you got these big hills in the woods and super tight trails, and then you had some open fields that were big hills. So you watch the guy in front of you, and if he went fast over the top, then and if he gave you the sign, then you could come up over the top and catch some air and go and have the big roller coaster fields. Just a ball. And on the first weekend, old Roger, he was hilarious because he's a 70-year-old guy, short, stocky, on the Skidoo Blizzard, and so he's not powering through corners. He's just more of a sit and ride kind of guy. But out of every corner, he's just hammering the throttle. And every time we stopped on the side of the trail just to see, how everybody's doing. Paul's shoulder he's in shoulder surgery now, but we wanted to get as many miles on before he went in for surgery. And so he's kind of starting to get a little sore and stiff, and you could see that he was falling back a little bit. So we'd stop quite a bit and let him have a break and stretch his arm out a little. And Roger is just a hoot. He's just like, this is the best day we've had in a long time, oh my gosh. And he was just a funny little guy. Rode that little Blizzard. It was a new Skidoo Blizzard, not a vintage. He rode that hard and pretty good. I was pretty impressed how he was riding that thing. And it was just gorgeous trails up there. That trail 258 or whatever that number is. Just a gorgeous trail system. The next weekend we went back up and with a different group of guys, and one of the guys was a teenage boy in that group, and he had a 440, I believe, LT Gray, and he rode the ever-living crap out of that thing. We only were able to do the first weekend we did 130 miles. The second weekend I had to leave early to get to a wake, and one of the other guys with us, he wanted to be out there at a decent time as well. And so we're like, yeah, we'll just do a little 60-mile loop. And it was great. We just did a little 60-mile loop, stopped at Flenberg again for a burger. It took us almost 2 hours to get a hamburger. They were so busy and so packed. 2 hours, oh my gosh, we almost had to leave. Good food, though. Oh, boy, good food. If you're in Flenberg there, stop for lunch on the trail. But that little Integre, oh, boy, he hit some spots, and it was nice. We found some play areas. You're going along, and all of a sudden, you're coming on the trail, and you're coming out of the field, and you look down the ditch, the highway road, to see if cars are coming. And all of a sudden, you're like, wait a minute. That ditch looks super deep, and nobody has rode in it. And so we stopped to play, and there was time. That snow's coming around my front bumper if you let off the throttle, and you're just having some fun playing around. Paul's out there trying to jump some driveways, but with his 600, that snow was deep enough. When he got down at the bottom of the ditch, he'd crack that throttle and just kind of and slowly build up some speed. But then, that was good times there. And then we just kept on the trail. At the end of the day, you could see Paul's shoulder really hurting. So we just kind of made a shortcut and got him home, before he was in too much pain. The weekend, I went up to the east side of Little Falls, to my buddy Jeremy's. And, we're like, it's a 60-mile loop right around his house. So he literally had a 5-mile ride west to pick up the trail, and then it was a 60-mile loop. Well, I didn't know what the trails were like there. Flat fields, no hills, hardly any corners. So we just pretty much sat at 55 miles an hour on the trail the whole time. It was like, got to the first gas station and it was like 25 miles. We're almost halfway around the circle. We're 45 minutes into this thing. And we're like, wait a minute, we're going to be home in less than an hour. So we looked at the Skidoo app on the phone and it said, well, right, we're at a junction. We could go north towards Brainerd and then head east towards Lake Mille Lacs area, and that'll drop us down and we'll wind our way back down south towards Piers. And I'll tell you what, when we headed north, it was at Garrison or Gainesville or whatever, to head east, that trail was an absolute riot. Oh, that was a riot. That trail straight north, a lot of them trails, for whatever reason, but there was a lot of big rock off trail. That's the spot. You go off trail, you will die, because there was massive rocks if you weren't looking, but there was lots of like basketball and bigger sized stones that were under the snow. You could see the snow kind of make a little hump over them, but if you weren't paying attention or if you didn't know what they were, that'd be a hard lesson to learn. And there was a couple spots. There was a spot that had a couple tracks that they went out, and you could see where they bounced off them rocks and exposed the rock, and you can see they made a hard turn and came right back to the trail. Like, the heck with that noise. On the old sleds, that's where you'd pop a trailing arm, buckle a trailing arm up. But no, so we got up there. That was just, we were just having a riot. Just, oh man, just having some fun. And Jeremy, he had his MXZ 500. And then we got into a spot, it was about 15 miles where they were logging, and you're like, oh crap. So the trail was pure ice. I dropped the ice scratchers. Trails were pure ice. You come up over the top of a trail, and on the back side, you start just sliding sideways or even doing a complete circle or getting screwed, into the side of the road because it's just glare ice. And that was kind of sucky. But then we got down there closer to Piers area, like by Hillman and stuff. And we stopped for a burger. But then we're like, well, let's take the ditch. He knew the area, and he's like, yeah, we can take this ditch for a while. The ditches were deep enough that with his MXZ 500 2000, he had to go. He couldn't just stop in the ditch. He had to keep going, and I'm like, holy hell, I'm pretty impressed you're making it. He's like, I can feel the dirt pretty much just cutting through the snow like that, But he had to keep his momentum up, but he had to ride the heck out of that sled to keep it moving. He got stuck a couple times, but not stuck bad, more like just hop off, kind of give it a tug and some throttle at the same time and get it back on top of the snow and then just jump on it and stab the throttle and go again. But yeah, that ditch ride, that was so fun because it was so deep in some spots. And you just, burp, burp. I tipped the backcountry over one time, like the slowest tip over in history. Deep ditch and then kind of flat, and came up a driveway, and they had a pretty good bank on their driveway. And I was coming up, and as I was coming up the driveway, you could see the other side was this big bank. So I kind of let off the throttle a little too early, so the sled almost stopped on this bank and just kind of did that slow motion fall over. Well, it stayed running. So I get out from underneath it, put it back on its skis and take off. And then all of a sudden my low oil pressure light, beep, loud alarm and the light flashing on the dash. And I'm like, what the shit? So I hit the kill switch and I thought maybe all my oil dumped out when it was kind of all, past 90 degrees, and I'm like, oh no, where are we gonna find oil, And so I let the sled sit. I opened the cap, thinking that'd help bleed whatever system was there. Put the cap on and just let the sled sit upright for 30 seconds to 45 seconds. Hit the trigger, boom, start up, lights off, and away we went. And so I don't know if it actually caught air in the oil system, or if the reservoir float just got on the wrong side, just needed time to come back up through the reservoir and get to the top. But for the rest of the day, it's been fine, and ever since then, it's been fine. But man, that was just an absolute ball. There was a couple spots with the backcountry that you'd crack that throttle and she just, and you look down, you got a 60-mile-an-hour track speed, and you're gaining speed, but you're not gaining speed very quickly. And you look to the side, and you're far from 60. You're doing better than 20, but you're far from 60, and you're thinking, man, another couple feet of snow down here, and this might become a real adventure. But I don't know, guys, you tell me how I did, and I'll insert some pictures and stuff. You guys tell me how I did for painting you a picture of our rides. And I got this GoPro now, and so I'm going to try this camera out. So that's why I'm using it today to see how it records and stuff. And so you guys let me know. Hopefully from now on, I'll have a little bit of narration and then some action footage. And so, all right. Thank you very much, guys.